time, I'll take a motion concerning our minutes from last month.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Our minutes are accepted. Before we get started, it is my understanding that our county clerk, Lisa Crowell, has a hot date this evening, and she needs to leave early. So, without objection, Ted, can she go first?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Miss Lisa.
I'm not hurt about her going first. I'm just at this point you had a hot date.
That's item 16.
And this is going to be item 16, committee members, and Lisa, whenever you're ready.
Well, what this is doing is actually just transfer from money from the county clerk to the sheriff's department to cover any overtime that would be working for security in the parking lot at 319.
Now, we discussed this in property management, and at first we thought that you would have that in your own budget, but you're saying it needs to go over to the sheriff's department's
Aye.
budget for that. Okay. Are there any questions from our committee?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second,
Who's the second? Mr. Pierce.
So we're going to call the roll on this.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes. Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, we met with PBA today. The parking study should be back to us by the end of, concerning your parking lot, should be back by next month.
Next month? Okay. Will that be ready for next month's property management meeting?
Yes.
Will that come there?
Yeah, we told them that was our guide,
Okay, cool.
kind of deadline, try to have it to us by that time.
Thank you so much.
That will help her,
Thank you.
all right.
Hey, Lisa, before you leave, I found some 99% off Valentine candy.
Everybody, thank you so much.
Anything else?
I think that's it. Thank you.
All right. So, Mr. Beatty.
Later, you gotta get equal opportunity.
Thank you. Before I give the investment report, we just finished our deadline for taxes. We had a great tax season. And so our deadline for the 17s, for folks who still owe some 17s, is February the 22nd, March the 22nd in our office, or it goes to the courts. We've collected over 99% of those, but we're sending out bills and notices. But if you're not sure, if you're 17s, for those watching, check with us, and because they'll go to the courts on the 22nd. That'll be the last day to pay. We had one bid this last month, and was for 271 basis points for 6 months. There was only 2 basis points difference between 6 months and a year. So we took the 6 months, but all indications are that interest rate increase is going to slow, maybe for a while. So we'll probably, the market will probably see us taking a little longer maturities up to a year in the days ahead. But we're currently at 264 increasing each month on our everyday fund. So it's kind of hard to lock down when you're barely behind it and with a bullet. Although it's been going up about 8 basis points a month, it was only up 2 basis points this month. But it is continuing to increase. So that was our activity for this month.
Any questions from the committee? Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Beatty.
Thank you very, very much. I'm gonna take that home and get some points.
Hey, give it back. Okie dokie. So our fund condition report, Ms. Nolan?
Okay, I'll start with the development tax. In February, we received $202,500. It brings our year-to-date total to $3,999,000. On our cash, at the end of the fiscal February, we had $384,974,000, with $334,642,000 being operating funds, $50,332,000 being borrowed funds. if there's no questions on the fund condition report. Some of those, I'm going to go up here to that energy efficiency project with a negative number. That is timing. The school board expends, then sends to the state, then the state sends down the money. So what you're seeing is a little timing there. On our revenue, Mr. Brady alluded to his collections for the 2018 tax roll. At the end of February, he had collected 89.37% of the roll. Our development tax, what I already said, was an increase of over 16% over prior year. Our hotel motel tax is only a slight decrease from last year of a little more than 2%. Sales tax for county-wide, and that really has an effect on the schools, is an increase of 6.87%. And at the end of February, all our balances, let me check one, I always have to look at, okay. Yeah, all our balances of where we are to date compared to the prior 5 years, we are ahead of the actual of what we've had the last 5 years. Again, that's indications that we will be adjusting revenues. Our estimated revenues will be adjusting it up. Interest income in all the funds, we are 100% collected what we budgeted.
Any questions or comments for Ms. Nolan?
Motion to approve is presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Can I just?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I just want to bring your attention to the debt service one, because that's really huge, because that's got the effect of two things happening in it. One, we're, what I said, over 100% collected on our interest, and we are 100% collected on what we estimated for the development tax. The other half goes into this fund. So as far as revenue, we are 92% collected on our estimated revenues. That's good.
Okay, next we have our risk management report. Ms. Miller?
Thank you. We'll start with Fund 264. And you'll notice we have some new exhibits this evening just for this fund. If you look at the bar charts, the first page at the top, the prior period is showing $14.5 million in revenue versus $11.3 million in expense. And the current period is showing $14.1 million versus $10.7 million in expense. This is 2 months. It's not much information to give you, but I just wanted to show you, because as we go through the calendar year, it'll show the trends. The fiscal year period is from last July through February, and in the prior period we had $42 million in revenues versus $44.5 million in expenses, and in the current period $44.9 million in revenue and $47 million in expenses. You'll notice there's a flip in whether the revenue is up or the expenses are up depending on the time period, and that again relates to the fact that the 7-month time period includes the 2 months when the Board of Ed is not submitting premiums, and so as the rest of the months come in, those premiums should pull us back up into a reasonable area. And then graphically down below, the bar chart with the line is a representation of the revenue versus the expenses on a rolling 24 basis, so that you can see the trends are pretty normal as far as the expenses go, and everything seems to be falling into line. If you turn to the next page where all the numbers are, so the first block is the calendar year 2018 revenue versus expense comparison. The next block down is the 2019 calendar year revenue versus expense comparison. Again, just 2 months. And you can see there, if you go over to the total column, that after just 2 months, we're running at about a $3.4 million margin for the year. And if you go down to the fiscal year comparison and look at the fiscal year for 2018-2019, again, this is just what you saw on the bar charts on the previous chart. it shows a deficit of 2.1 million. And again, that should catch up as the rest of the full month premiums come in. We'll be looking at the claim and rate projections hopefully later this month, and so we should have an idea on what our revenues and claims will look like by next month on premium needs for 2020, and then firm up sometime shortly thereafter. So we should be coming in with some numbers for you. Any questions on 264? Okay, so let's move to 266. 266 is our OJI fund. And if you'll notice in the bar charts, the year-over-year paid claims, this year's claims are running about $140,000 behind last year, and this year being the red bars and last year being the blue bars. And of course, again, we only have data this year through February. On the workers' comp versus OJI costs, you can see that the OJI costs are running fairly steady through the time period. Workers' comp last year in October, we had a big bump up. We had a large claim. The good news there is we only have 6 workers' comp claims remaining. The rest of them are all closed. And the next page with the numbers on it, I'll just call your attention to the yellow box, and that with a corresponding box down below it shows that $140,000 improvement in the claim picture year over year on a fiscal year basis. Any questions on 266? Okay, and then the final chart is our legal expenses by fiscal year, and this year we had legal costs paid to Hudson Reed and McCreary of $33,000 and $33,032. This is not the total legal cost the county pays, because we do pay to some other attorneys as well. The total legal costs paid to other firms were $18,939 for a total of $51,971. The charts show what we paid last year as well, and on a year-to-date basis, fiscal year-to-date basis, at this point last year we were at about $203,000 versus $145,000 this year. So, and that's our legal costs so far. Any questions on any of these reports?
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve is presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Pass that down.
Thank you.
We have a large agenda.
But Jeff Sanders doesn't get it.
I'll be back.
Looks like we need to increase our petty cash for building codes. Mrs. Bell? Lisa, can you take that, or?
I can do this. I can do this one for. They currently have 150 cash on hand to make change, and they are asking to have another drawer, another $50 drawer to bring their total cash on hand to $200. Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
The motion and a second. Call a roll on this one. Okay, call a roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes. Motion passes. And the ambulance service fund budget transfer is Mr. Nunley.
We've had more than our share of issues with FMLA and leave time, as well as some positions that we have had difficulty filling, which necessitates us using more overtime than we anticipated. So we'd like to transfer money from paraprofessionals, which is the line item that people get paid their salaries from, to overtime in order to take care of that amount of $100,000.
Do you think this will get you through the end of the year, or is this just what you need
I
for right
don't-
now?
If it goes at the if it continues to go at the present rate, no. But I would kind of like to see where it's going to go before I come back to it. If we get everybody back, we'd be okay.
Any other questions?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy? Yes. Commissioner Gooch?
Yes. Motion passes. And then service salary adjustment, Mr. Nunley?
This kind of relates back to that previous one. I guess I first need to explain to you a little bit about how the ambulance service operates. We work 3 24-hour shifts, A, B, and C shifts. We have an assistant director on each one of those shifts. They're stationed here in Murfreesboro, and they're responsible for the operations of the ambulance service. In Smyrna, we call them the North End Supervisor. They essentially do the same type of duties that the assistant director does, but they do it on the north end of the county. Typically, when we have the assistant director off, we'll bring the north end supervisor up here to fill in for that person. And we have some alternates in the ambulance service that can fill in for the north end supervisor. Last June, our C shift assistant director had an issue where he had an infection of his spinal cord, and he ended up being a paraplegic out of that. He has gotten some better, but whether or not he'll ever get well enough to come back to work is in doubt. So what we did was we brought the north end supervisor up to take over his position, and we put one of those alternates temporarily to cover the north end. There's a difference in pay for those positions, and we would like to make that adjustment in order to cover that. Additionally, back in I believe it was November, our A shift assistant director had a stroke while at work. He's recovering nicely, and we expect him to come back to work before too often long. These positions that I'm asking for you to allow me to pay them at the rate for the position are all temporary at this stage. I fully expect that the A shift is going to go back to normal. We will have to make some decision at some point in time about the C shift. But that's what that is.
When you say temporary, what are you anticipating?
The A shift assistant director he went and took a driver's test the other day. As soon as his doctor releases him, he's ready to come back to work. He comes by and sees me about once a week, and he's doing very well.
Okay.
I fully anticipate he'll be back to work shortly. The C shift assistant director is more than likely not going to be able to come back to work, so that'll end up being a permanent move on that end.
Are you making the salary adjustments retroactive from the time that you put them in those positions?
Yes, ma'am.
And do we have a number on this? Because I didn't see it.
We've got the money to cover it in our budget. It amounts to about $3.43 an hour, I believe, is what it breaks down.
The ones that that they're doing, it's in the paraprofessional, so it's in the line that he ends up having money.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Gooch?
Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Got that one.
If I could, I'd like to ask Mr. Nunley a question. I don't get to see him since I left public safety. I was there for 4 years. Your convalescence run that we instated for you, how is that working for you?
It's working out good. We got a late start. We started right after Mayor Ketchum took office. So we were kind of late getting started because we had to get personnel to do it. But, we just went over the numbers yesterday. We started out, we only made 1 run the first week. We made 40 runs last week.
Oh, wow.
So it's working well.
Does it look like it's going to pay for itself and maybe hopefully a profit in the future?
It's going to pay for itself and make a profit in the future.
Thank you.
We went out and had a meeting, Commissioner, with the president of St. Thomas Rutherford, and asked that they start referring, and I think that's really started picking up.
It really has. We don't have a contract with St. Thomas Rutherford, but they're giving us lots of funds. We do have a contract with Stonecrest, and we have a contract with Hospice, and we have a contract with Trust Fund. So we're keeping 2 ambulances on the road right now, and all the time.
There are a couple of private entities in town, one that we were talking about yesterday, the one that's not even, doesn't have a business license here, right? And they're fussing that we're doing this, but
Yeah, I know.
they weren't causing.
I live in my district.
Okay. All right, you know. Enough said. Our program's done quite well. Right?
Anything else from Mr. Nunley? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Solid Waste Fund Budget Amendment and Transfer, Mr. Nolan.
You can't just save me the problem and hand that to her, and we're all.
She's bragging up. She already got 2.
Well, see, she believes Valentine's Day is on the 15th because candy's half price.
That's why I told my kids.
You asked about a contract for her. We've got one written. We have a few budget amendments. I don't know what order y'all
Is
have.
this one-
Starts with the overtime, the $14,000
Okay.
overtime.
Want to move $14,000 from overtime line item into the truck driver's line item. We're shorthanded again, and we've been shorthanded most of the year, so we think that will get us to the end of the year. And for communications, we want to move $3,000 out of the advertising line item into the communication line items. That's for our telephones and things. Diesel fuel, we need $55,000. We think we'll make it through the end of the year. And tubes and tires, we think we need $5,000 more to make it to the end of the year. That $60,000 total is coming from unassigned fund balance. Contracts with private agencies is where we pay to get rid of our electronics at the Haley Road operation. Our weights have gone up, and so we have more stuff that we're shipping out. We're going to take that money out of the same budget, which is the site development. We don't anticipate doing a whole lot out of that.
Next one is $2,500.
Okay, we need to move $2,500 from the landfill budget out of engineering into travel. While we were on our tour out west, flights got canceled. We stayed an extra night at a very expensive hotel. It helped create some of that problem. You want to keep on going?
Sure.
And then we want to move $151,500 into the equipment line item. That would be to purchase the roll-off equipment for the Rockwell site. And we want to move $13,000 from into machinery parts, and that is to buy piping equipment to take all the flares off, the methane flares off the landfill, and replace those with vents. That's what the TDEX suggested we do. And both of those would be coming out of fund balance.
Did I get everything? Okay. Does that keep our fund balance healthy?
Yeah, we'll
As far as
roughly $6.5 million.
Any questions? Got a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes. Motion passes. So I think we need to put item number 12, that's going to be after 9. So let's go ahead and get Mr. Samick and whoever you have. And this will be the general purpose school fund budget amendments.
The first amendment for the accounting department, it takes $40,000 of the unbudgeted growth in the sales tax revenue fund a transitional position so that training can begin for my replacement. I am retiring at the end of July. So I need to be nice, Trey. And we have plenty of growth in that. I knew y'all would be happier with that than ending fund balance. Quite a few things. So the motion for that is to amend 40,000 in local sales tax revenue, account 4210, in order to fund training time for my replacement as presented in function 72510.
Since you just learned that little trick, why don't you stay up here?
Oh, I learned that trick long ago. Yeah, probably 20 years ago. Yeah. Okay. Would you like me to proceed with the next amendment?
Let's go ahead.
All right. The next one is just, it's a cleanup of our accounting codes. This is, we have student support function, 72130. We have 6 existing central office-based employees. We don't have any new money, no new positions. We're just moving them around. The testing responsibilities were reassigned to our coordinator for data assessment when our previous safety and testing coordinator left. And Mr. Krim came on board in January to oversee the safety program. Therefore, this position is now best moved into other student support. We had it in instruction because it was kind of split before. Our athletic director and our lead athletic trainer are being moved from other salaries, option code 189, to the supervisor director option code. So we'll have 3 people in that code, existing positions. The other 3 positions are our behavior analysts. These mostly work with special ed students, but some with regular ed students. And since they are split, we really need to move them into this function and out of special ed. We have we have to report special ed separately in many ways, and it's just cleaner to move them out and then have to carve them out. And they will go into 72130, 189 because there's no option code for behavior specialists. And our recommended motion there is to amend $128,507 to account 72130, 105, $88,838 to account 72130, 189, and $39,560 in related payroll benefits, with the salary funds coming from other salaries, option code 189, in the student support function, the regular ed program function, and the special ed program function, as presented. Those are our 2 amendments.
Okay. Is there any questions at this time? Rhonda, did he present that correctly?
You did. You got it all just right. I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Yes. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes, motion passes. Now, I think at this time, do we need to move item number 12 up after 9? Okay,
Yes.
so this is the funding for property for future schools.
And this is, y'all approved 10.4 million back in late spring for land purchases for us out of the building program. So these are the first 2, and Mr. Clardy is winding up looking for that 3rd one and turning it over to Mr. Lee.
That's right. We discussed that a little bit today, as a matter of fact. So we're looking at one that is off Independent Hill Road, right across Allenville Road. And so we'll see how that goes in the next few days. And Mr. Lee will be following up on that. Did you want me to start by reading the motion, or?
Whatever you want. Whatever you want.
Okay, these are the motions that were offered to the school board. On the Matthews property, which is we're going to look at first, it's on Highway 231. and that's recommended approval. Motion to approve the Board of Education contract for the purchase price of approximately 100 acres of the Andrew J. and Christy R. Matthews property for $42,500 an acre, subject to county commission funding, and to authorize the chairman to sign the contract approved by the board attorney, Jeff Reed, as presented. And I just handed out some paperwork here. So if you look on page 2, which is back of that first sheet, you'll see Highway 231 North site up on the top center of your page, and 266 Jefferson Pike intersecting. And the property is at the northwest corner of the Matthews farm out there. The farm is large. I think it's about 800, 1,200 acres. And this is 100 acres right on the northwest and northern boundaries of that property, with the frontage on Highway 231. The next page is kind of a rough layout of the way we're looking for that piece of property. And Mr. Lee will be working when it comes time with the site engineers to make sure that if things are changed or whatever, they will get in the right place. There's 11 acres set aside for a septic field there for the drip system, and this has all been tested, perked, and approved. The property is $42,500 an acre, and we had an appraisal on it at $4 million. We have done the testing on it. We have done soil tests, pervious tests for the septic system. We've done the phase 1 environmental and a traffic study for that area. Now, since we had the meeting the other night, I've found that it's going to be tough for us to get out on Jefferson Pike. But I went out yesterday and met a gentleman that has property on the other side that we can get a 100-foot strip right along the fence road to get on Holly Grove Road, which will, empty out back to the back and out to Lascassas Pike, or you can go down there and go out to Jefferson Pike. So we believe that this meets all the qualifications, and it passed Health Ed unanimously. And I've got a history of the prices that we've given for property over the last several years from 1985 to the present. And in 1985, we gave $8,600 an acre. 96, we gave $9,000 an acre. 97, we gave $12,000. 98, we gave $10,500. Come on down to Christiana property, we gave $12,000 back then. Laverne Middle property, we gave $16,500 per acre. Come on out to Amaville Road, where Stewart Creek is, we gave $12,360 for that. Get into the Brown Chapel property, we gave $18,872. Then we come down to there's part of that property that the septic went on that we gave $45,000, but we were deeded back an amount of property where the developer participated in that septic system, so to service the houses behind that and the step system. Also, we had some at 29.5 out there. Then you come on down to Oakland Middle School, we got 42.9 and 45 in that property, 45,000. Whitworth Buchanan, we gave 71,560 for some property there. Annex at Oakland Middle cost us 61,000 an acre. Come down to Rocky Fork Middle, we gave 36,000 acres there. And then Rocky Fork Elementary turned out to be about 34 an acre as we split it up. So that gives you a history of where we are on that. And if there's any questions you'd like me to try to answer, I'd be glad to.
Mr. Chairman? Yes, sir. I've got a couple of questions on the executive summary. Okay. It says here, the site is within karst control geology and topo, but a cluster of small dropouts, signs of apparent active sinkholes was observed in the central portion of the site. These and similar features will need to be repaired at the time of construction. Are y'all confident that this is going to be okay and we're not going to be faced with another $1 million slap in the face removing dirt like we had just before, not long ago?
That, I'm confident that we can repair it. I mean, we run across this type of thing all the time. In Rutherford County, there's one thing you can always count on, and that's rock, karst area, sinkhole, and fat clay. And on every site that we've done, pretty much, we've had to go in and patch some of these. And so the geotechnical engineer seemed to think that it was repairable and a fairly reasonable fix. So I feel, good about it.
But then one single boring, they believe isolated deposit of existing field.
There may be some on there, a little bit of existing field. But what needs to be done, once the school site plan has been worked out and actually kind of carved in stone, then the reboring needs to go in there and take place and make sure just exactly where the footings and things are sitting, that they can be, confident that they're designing something that will take care of all these areas. Even if it means, we run across stuff all the time where we have to take out 3 or 4 feet in a footing line of trash and put in shot rock. Different things like that all the time. It's pretty standard. And one of the it's never seen because it's usually in the contract with the with the general contractor, because we normally catch it if there's anything like that from the borings and the testing and things we do. So that was a misfortune, the incident out there, but it was not in the general contract. It wasn't known at the time that the general contract was let. So if it had been tested, then we would have known and it would have been put into the general contract. And that price came in fairly low out there on that site. Anyway,
We have moved to increase testing.
Yeah, I was going to make a statement. We're trying to learn from our experience. And once the final determination of where the actual buildings will be placed, and this is preliminary, but once we determine where those buildings are, we're going to do additional borings now as part of our protocol, so that we hopefully don't run across this problem again. And typically when we know there are, most every property we're going to buy or look at in this area is going to have some sort of karst feature. If it's real open and the reports show caverns, caves, big sinkholes, we typically avoid those pieces of property. It's very hard to find a piece of property locally that doesn't have some feature to it that we need to deal with. And typically what we do, now that they've identified where these locations are, we'll work the actual building structures away from these areas to the areas that are more stable. And then these areas we would try and do, like our detention pond, our septic field, we would try and locate those things around those areas so that we don't have a building sitting on top of it.
It said the geotechnical engineer should be retained to observe and test the site development. How expensive is that going to be?
We do that all the time.
That's done on every job.
Hey,
Yes, sir.
correct.
It's done on every job.
We just take that very seriously, and we want to make sure that we're getting our money's worth. We need a set of eyes at all time on it. When they're digging footings, pouring concrete, getting slabs ready, setting steel. We normally have the geotechnical guy there. We have someone pulling cylinders and testing concrete as it comes off, send it to the lab. We have them checking anchor bolts. We have them checking the steel as it is put in and all the connections on the steel. We have a roofing inspector that inspects roofs. The program has just developed over many years to take care of most of those things, and there's not really, we have very few problems these days with those types of issues.
And Commissioner Johnson, I think back to one of the previous Christiana area board members. There was a parcel he really, and he was right, location-wise it was great. It had some major sinkholes on it, crossed it off the list, and I think it killed him that we had to do it, but it would have been too expensive to build on condition price per acre. We are always cognizant of issues like that.
Preventative measures.
Yes, sir. We've learned a lot in building all these schools over the years.
There's as a matter of fact, there's a piece that we're looking at in the Amberville Road area a few months ago. And once we got in there in the geotechnical, found a closed depression, we found some caves on it and some different things. We crossed it off the list and moved on. So we're very careful in looking at these things and doing our due diligence.
Well, I'm just concerned that we'd be surprised with another $1 million debacle, so that's what bothers me. So I think you ought to take the necessary cautionary steps.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
The 100-foot you referred to coming out on Holly Road, that's going to be used for what?
That would be used for an access.
Not the main entrance?
No, the main entrance would be off 231.
So,
Who will maintain that 100-foot once the school is built and finished, as far as the maintenance on the grass and all? Reason I'm asking, I have one in my district now. This school is in my district, the new one. And there's a little issue down at Wilson over who owns the back access to Jefferson Pike. And it's hard to get it cut and groomed, and I don't want to see this happen again on this access, so I'd like to know who's going to
Well,
handle it.
currently, we are mowing, the school system is mowing that, and we had this discussion with the road superintendent last year. That road was not put in as to county standards, but the school system owns the road. We have some money, we've been working to get our capital project set up so we can go in there and overlay that road. But the reason that's supposed to be a private road for schools only. But when all that housing went in back there, all of that construction traffic used that road. We blocked it off. We put the gates across it. They went around the gates. They did whatever was necessary, and they just practically destroyed that road. But I think that now, and Trey can speak to this, we will be building those things to county specs so that hopefully we can turn those over to the county and let them maintain those. Now, we have been cutting a lot of stuff alongside the roads and different things.
Well, here's what happened this year, that just to be, in the past, we got some help from the county road department. They would help us by mowing it because we left the road open. When we closed the road, the citizens in that area had to drive around, and they made a lot of phone calls to get that road opened back up. And at the county's request, we opened it back up. We had sort of a gentleman's agreement that if we opened the road up and left it open, that there would be some help. That agreement has kind of fallen out, and I don't know the history of all of it, but we did not know that help was not forthcoming this year. So we took back over the maintenance of the road and got it mowed and got it clipped, because we got some calls from some citizens that said and I had to look into it because I'm new into the position to find out some of the history. So we had our lawn mowing people take it over. Now, part of that, when we opened up the new Rocky Fork Middle School, we had some similar roads that we met with the city of Smyrna, and we built them to city standards. And the city, we've deeded those roads to the city so that they will maintain those roads and take care of the grass mold. And we'll be looking to make some sort of the same agreement here. Once we leave this block of property that's ours and it becomes an easement, we'll be looking for, build it to county standard and turn it over to the county to maintain.
As long as somebody's going to take care of it.
Yes, sir, that's the intent. And as we move forward, we decided at our last meeting that I'm going to be meeting with Mr. Brooks and Mr. DeMossi on these projects so that they're aware of what's going on, so that they can take those things into their budget to begin to maintain them and add them to their role of roads. But that's what we're going to do in the future.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
You made the statement that there were some things that changed between the Health and Education meeting and tonight's meeting that forced you to look at the Holly Road. What was the problem on their ingress or egress onto their?
Well, the owner of the property doesn't plan on developing anything back past the school and over toward his house. Well, if we go out of that side over there to the road, that cuts his farm right in the middle. He'd have to have a gate on either side of that road. And when he wanted to get to the back side of his farm, he would end up going through 2 gates to get over to the back of the farm to feed or whatever. So he said his children may at some point develop that through the foundation that they're leaving. But in his lifetime, he doesn't want to go out every day and open 2 gates to get onto his own property. So
that forced you to go to Holly.
Yes, sir.
And what was the cost on going to Holly?
Well, it's going to be about $120,000.
Annually?
No, just for the property.
Okay, that's for as long as we're there?
Yeah, we'll buy it. It'll be,
That easy.
and then we'll turn that over to
Okay.
the county once the road's put in.
And TDOT's okay on ingress and egress as far as turning, stacking lanes? Are they going to require a red light?
We don't know that yet. Typically, TDOT will not give us any feedback till we get into the development stage. Once we get,
Well, it's kind of late, isn't it?
yes, it is, but that's typical with them. Once we begin to develop our drawings, then we'll begin submitting to TDOT. We have a preliminary traffic study, which is strong indications of what TDOT's going to require. So we will put that into the drawing, and as we move forward, we'll increase
So
those
do
goals.
you anticipate with their strong indications they're going to require a signalization?
At this time, it's not a signal, but it is a widening with turning lanes.
Okay. And you've got those numbers?
Yes, sir. That's
Got
part of the
traffic count
We got the
and-
traffic count.
Sure.
Everything.
Because that's kind of busy out there, Steve.
Terribly busy.
Yeah,
They back up now through the red light at Walter Hill from
Right.
Siegel.
sure.
So does Holly Grove help, the citizens of Holly Grove, from this new
No, it won't help with congestion of 231 at all.
Eventually, they'll be back on 231.
Again, just a few hundred back.
That's what I'm saying, they'll be back on, that's what.
Yeah, just a few hundred.
They're back to 231.
Right.
But we do have a preliminary traffic study, and it calls for certain things that have to be done, like a turning lane. It recommends at some point that Jefferson Pike needs to be widened down through there, and I believe they indicated the other night that it's on their radar. Mr. DeMosi.
Oh, who's right,
That
our planning.
It's in planning, yeah. And so we have, some things. Baker's Road, where we have that school out there. Wilson's another one.
If we started right now, it took 16 years to get 99 widened, going out to 99.
And Jefferson Pike's still not widened, Smyrna to 840.
Yeah, and TDOT will tell you that if you started today, typically by the time you do the acquisition, the right of way, planning, everything else is 12 years.
The last study I was able to look at on the widening of Jefferson Pike come right through that farm. It left the old road and come through the farmlands, come on out to 96. That was the cheapest way they could do it and involve the fewest amount of people. But they've been gonna do it for 50, 60 years. It's not done.
Yeah.
50 years from now, it still won't be done, so I think you'll probably be all right.
Anything else? Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or any further discussion? If not, we'll call the roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodds? Yes. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes. Motion passes.
So we will read the second motion. First of all, let me just show you where this piece of property is. It's Christiana side on page 2. It's off of kind of between Wayside Road and Nep's Mill Road. Christiana Road comes into that piece of property and turns into Hoover Gap Road and goes around the south side of it. Plainview goes up to the west of it, hits Sledge, and Sledge goes east and comes around back over to Miller Road. To the other side, Hoover Gap Road to the south and back up, turning back toward the north a little bit. So it says recommend approval. Motion to approve the Board of Education contract for the purchase of approximately 150 acres of H Global Investment LP property for 18,000 acres subject to county commission funding, and to authorize the chairman to sign a contract approved by the Board Attorney Jeff Cruz as presented. If you go over to page 11, you can see this piece of property with the 150 acres laid out on it. And again, this is a rough layout. It is not the final layout. There will be 3 access roads. One going out to the intersection of Christiana and Plainview and Hoover Gap. There'll also be one going out on the south to Hoover Gap, and then there's one coming in on Sledge Road. This is a 3-school complex. We've had soil testing done out there, mainly fat clay. is the issue, and, you know, since I've been here, we've rarely found anything. We found some lean and fat on all sites. So it's just something that we've learned to deal with. The phase 1 environmental's been done. The, as I said, the final layout's not done, and once that final layout is figured out, Mr. Lee will have that retested in the footprints of the building to make sure that we're sitting on solid land out there. And if you'll notice, this, the little squiggly dash line is a floodplain on this piece of property. This piece is the prime piece of that property, and it's mostly up out of the floodplain. There's the phase 1 is clear. There's recommendations in an initial traffic study for elementary school access recommendations, middle school when it's added in the high school, and then additional traffic recommendations, and that's on 15, page 15. This piece of property was appraised at 2.6 million, and it's $18,000 an acre for 2.7 million. So at this time, I'll entertain questions.
I've got a question. In the summary of findings, it said the roadways surrounding the Christiana site are less than ideal. And as noted in the study, they both have geometric and structural deficiencies. Okay, then on down here where it says additional traffic recommendations, talking about modifying the Epps Mill Road interchange at I-24, the Epps Mill Road from US 41. What kind of problems are you looking at from there? And how costly do you think that's going to be?
Well, I'm sure.
Of course, I know we're not looking at building all 3 of these schools next week.
Right.
You know, but somebody's going to have to pay for this somewhere on down the line.
Right. It'll have to be phased in. One of the main issues that we're having out there in those schools on that end of the county, we've got 22 portables out there, portable classrooms. And it's been the goal of the board to try to get rid of as many of those portables as it can. This school would serve to get rid of portables at 4 different schools in that area out there. So, you know, I realize there's a lot of work that's got to be done, and it can be phased in. The first one, the elementary school, it said the elementary school site is expected to function adequately with a single access point to Sledge Road. Provide flashing 20-mile-per-hour warning beacon on Sledge Road in advance of the school access drive, and widen Sledge Road to provide a southbound left turn lane at the proposed elementary access drive. So this engineer that did all the traffic studies, that's what he's recommending now. And Mr. Lee and Mr. Sandvig will be asking money to go ahead and develop that site later in this meeting. So there is some time. Normally, the high school will not appear out there. We've got another high school site at Whitworth Buchanan, and then we'll have that high school site. So normally it's 5, mainly it's 7 years for high school, is what history shows us throughout. So today it would be at least 7 years. It could be 15 years before high school built out there. We don't know. We have to see what happens. So there is some time, but you make a great point. It's time now for the county to start looking at these issues and addressing them. And I know that the chairman of the planning commission has been hammering this now for a while, that we need to start looking at it. And I think the point is that people are aware of what needs to be done. Citizens are aware of it. The road department's aware of it. The school board's aware of it. Planning commission's aware of it. The county planning department's aware of it. So I think that someone will have to step up with the leadership, and it could be, you know, we're not in the road building business as a school system. We are good at building schools, we're good at counting students, and we're good at educating students. But we try to stay out of the road building business unless it's on the internal side. So it's time for the departments to get their heads together and start working these issues out and trying to resolve them as they come up. But at this point, I don't see any issue really with the elementary school and the roads that are out there.
The reason I brought that up too is the new Rockville school out here, that's gonna be a nightmare with the traffic out there. You know,
We have,
and I've heard quite a few, and that's not even in the district that I represent, but I've heard quite a few people call, you know, traveling 99 out through there.
we have two, basically it's a twofold problem for all of us. It's not just a school system, it's for all of us.
Sure.
We're all, Gary's not. I'm a taxpayer, the rest of us are taxpayers here.
You don't pay tax?
He doesn't
I
live
buy
in
gas
Rutherford.
and food over here every day. I have for 15 years. I don't own any property and don't want any.
But smart man.
Couldn't afford it.
Where I'm going with this is, if we put a school on a main highway, there's no good way to handle the traffic because they're not wide enough.
Right.
And once you stop traffic to let cars, whichever way they're going, turn into a school, it's an accordion effect like a wreck on the interstate.
Sure.
Once it backs up, it takes a long time to uncoil. If we put them on the main highways, we have additional traffic on the main highway. If we put them on where they need to be based on our demographic, they end up tending to be more on the country road. Brown's Chapel, Rocky Fork, Stewart's Creek, all these other schools, they end up being on country roads. What we have erred doing in the past is work together. With this property, we're looking to build an elementary which is not going to open now for a year and a half. It's not going to open until August of 2021. So we have time to begin to formulate our plans with the county highway department and the county planning. The middle school would probably come on 1 to 2 years after that, which there's another couple of years to work on these roads to improve them. The problem is going to be, once we build this school, it's the development that's going to come with it, which you all know is the residential development. So by opening an elementary now and phasing these in over a period of time, the hope is if we work together with the highway department, they can begin to make the road improvements and see which way they want to go. And we've got 4 to 7 years to work on it, and it's not going to drop in our lap in 1 year, which we haven't done that in the past as a group. And we're making a concerted effort. The road department, county planning with Mr. DeMasi, and our department, we made a promise to each other that we're going to work better together.
Well, basically, you're looking at the elementary school being a wide sledge road to provide a southbound left turn lane. So
we would do that as part of the school project.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That part is done.
That would just be right here.
Yeah, on Highway 99 for the Rockville High School, there's some TDOT requirements where we're going to widen that road again and add some additional turning lanes. That work will take place this summer. Those kind of things will take place with the project. It's as we go out away from there, how do we get to the next major artery that's a better road? That's the kind of things we need to work with the county on so that they can begin to make those improvements.
will you all be building the road and then turn it over to the county?
Yes, sir, the internal
When it
roads.
meets the county's
Yes, sir.
requirements.
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Be built to their specification.
Because this piece of property, if you look at page 11, the property we're buying is basically, it's what's inside those two rectangles that are put together. It's showing two roads that are leaving this square of property that we're buying that's getting us back to those roads. Those we would build to be county spec and turn those over to the county. We would build those as part of the project. We probably would build one now because that's what it's required for the elementary. We would, I'm assuming, go ahead and acquire the easement, but we may not build the road till we build the middle school. But at that time, we would build that leg of the road and then turn it over to the
Those
county.
easements been pursued at all or investigated?
What
There's a
is that?
southbound easement to Hoover. And then
The
it looks like a
easement for this
westbound
road, is there's these two.
Yeah.
Have they been-
Yeah. They're being written up in the contract.
It's part of the agreement to purchase the land. We don't get the easements, we're landlocked. So it's part of the,
Yeah, it's part of the-
part of the land
The
agreement to
same,
dedicate.
LLC on,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What is the distance from the school site to 41 and 231?
I don't know.
Well, this school is 6 miles from Christiana Elementary. And it's the exact same distance to Buchanan, within 2/10. I'm
How-
sorry, not you, but.
How wide an area will the children be zoned to attend this school?
We haven't worked the zoning out completely yet. We
But
haven't
they're not going to all be right in this little area, of course.
No, sir. It'll bleed over. What this school will do is take some students off Buchanan and students from Christiana. A larger number probably from the Christiana area because Buchanan is not that big a school. Then we would rezone students from Rockvale, which is overcrowded, to Christiana.
Back to my previous question, guess at how far it is to 231 or 41?
To 231, I'm going to guess 6 miles.
6 miles.
Because it's 6 miles from this school to the Christiana school, and Christiana sits on 231.
Yeah, but it's still 4 miles down there, or 3 miles from Christiana down to Christiana Road. So I would say that it is approximately 3.5 miles over to 231.
And the 41, about the same?
About the same. Because the 41 is on the other side of the interstate.
So regardless of whether you're going to build the elementary school first, correct?
Yes, sir.
People are going to have to come from a pretty far distance to get to there, so they're going to be using all these little narrow path roads to get there, and the buses are going to have to get there. So your problem will initially be with the elementary school first. It's not going to come with the middle and the high school. It's going to be right there on day one when you open the door.
Yes, sir.
The road problem. will
Yes,
be.
but we've already got buses on these roads.
Oh, I know. I drive them. Not on that one, but I live here. Some of my people still live out in that area, so I know this area very well. It's very narrow paths.
It is, and, but the road count, I mean, the traffic count and his projections and everything takes that into account. And then his recommendation is to widen that one section of Sledge Road. So he has looked at it now to, this would rezoning Buchanan Elementary is at 125% capacity right now. Christiana Elementary is at 108%. Barfield Elementary is 112% capacity. And Rockville Elementary is 123% capacity. So that's a lot of overage there. That's 23, 35, and 8. That's, you know, that's a lot of extra students. And that's the ones that are filling up those 22 portable classrooms.
Well, I'm not questioning
Yeah.
whether you need a school or not. My concern is getting the children to the school. It's going to be an issue. That's just my thoughts.
Item number 4 is additional traffic recommendations, and it's talking about a tie-in due north to Epps Mill. It looks like it's probably the shortest route. Have y'all ever entertained or communicated with whatever appropriate committee to do a bond and put the roadway in your budget?
If we
Put it
do
in the
that,
bond.
we have to share it with the city.
Because it's,
It's shared funding when we do elementary work.
Or
I'll let
middle
you
school.
explain it.
Elementary or middle, we would share about 15% of
what if
whatever
it's,
we borrow.
what if it's in the high school?
If it's only for the high school.
So if the roadway
for the
accesses the property,
complex,
and it accesses the complex, which includes
we would have,
elementary.
it would be a blend of elementary, middle, and high school. We would share, what would you say?
I'll round it to 15%.
Yeah.
Of
We have to,
Of
we
that
have to
particular-
borrow
Of that item.
50% more.
If it costs, we would have to borrow 15% more and give it to the city of Murfreesboro.
So could the county do, independent of
Yes.
school board?
Yes.
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 The county could do a bonded job.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we spent quite a bit of time talking about roads and infrastructure at Health and Ed the other night. And exactly what Trey and Mary and, you know, what they're saying is true, is that we've never comprehensively looked at the road system leading to the schools. We've always just improved the roads touching the schools. And so this is our first time to do this. And so I think what you're going to see is, and this is going to help too, the timing is really good because I know in Doug DeMoss's budget for this coming year is funds to do a updated major thoroughfare plan. And so you do that for 10 years. And so when you're looking at that major thoroughfare plan and you see where schools are going to be, then you know where the roads need to be and you know how to create that support system for them. And that was one of the conversations I had, you know, with Mr. Brooks as well, was, you know, I need to make sure that he knows, you know, his job has been traditionally to maintain roads. Their job is to educate kids, and they just happen to have to build schools to do that. So we haven't really ever had anybody who's had to build roads. So that's going to be a new thing that we as leadership are going to have to figure out, how does that piece happen? And how does it happen economically so that we're not paying an extra 15% to make it happen? So it is definitely an issue, but it is on everybody's radar. But that's what, you know, they were saying about somebody's going to have to take the lead. We're going to have to figure out what that new process is going to look like.
What committee would you envision that deriving from?
I would say Public Works. Yeah.
It's new. The problem is, by the time we get ready to build a school, we're always behind. And when we buy the land, we're looking at a 3-school complex. And we've been, in the past, other than Stewart's Creek, we've been buying property for 1 school. So this is new, again, trying to buy 3 schools where we do have time to, like Commissioner Allen's saying, is to work through this process. And I'm not saying that it's a good thing to drop an elementary school in on this road. There's never, unfortunately, just like Brown's Chapel and Baker Road, that road is still, it's a little wider than these, but not much. And we've had to actually widen so that the buses can make the turns just to get into the school, some additional things after the school opened. So this is going to give us time to do what you're talking about, is be creative in how we build these roads and how these other roads get improved. And I don't have that answer, but we're willing to be part of the solution and work with everybody.
I know that Mr. Brooks is in the audience. Do you have any possible feedback on what kind of costs we might be looking at in this project? Or
He hasn't
roads?
seen anything yet. We haven't even had a chance to sit together yet.
I've got to be in this conversation at some point, but I'm not sure this is the right forum for that
That's kind of,
conversation.
That's what I'm saying. We need to get,
There's no question about the fact that the highway department has to be involved in these conversations, but
Before you buy the
I'm
property.
not sure this is the right forum for that.
and what impact that may or may not have.
I can see this, Sledge Road as it exists right now, 2 school buses cannot pass on Sledge Road as it exists right now. And the right-of-way, which is prescriptive right-of-way, it's not owned by the highway department. It's not owned by the county, it's prescriptive. A lot of those people's deeds call for a pin in the center of the road, which by County Uniform Highway Law gives us the ability to maintain the road in its current state and work on the roadside ditch. That's County Uniform Highway Law. That's not my rules, that's the way it is. So a 25-foot right-of-way, even if it all belonged to us, you still couldn't build an adequate road for school traffic on. So there's gonna have to be property acquired. Now, how willing the residents are to let that happen, I can't answer. You know, there's eminent domain, it could be, you know, but that's gonna be a long process like Mayor Ketchum was talking about. When you start doing the legal stuff that will go along with taking someone's property at fair market value when they really don't want to give it up. So the right-of-way acquisition, the environmental, the plans, it's a long, drawn-out process. It really is.
Do we know how many?
Part of the solution, don't get me wrong, but
Do we know how many miles we're
there's
looking at?
Do what now?
Do we know how many miles of?
No, sir.
Okay.
The other thing is there's 3 ways out of here. We can adjust this to where the Sledge Road piece is last. So that, and that's what I say, that's information we can use. We've got 2 other roads that we're showing out of here that go to Hoover's Gap for the elementary.
Last winter, I had no idea that this was happening. I'd heard, we had all heard rumors about a school coming to that area, but not this far out. I was thinking more up on the line of Ebbs Mill when Buchanan Estates development happened. But last winter, we did go out and make some dramatic improvements to Hoover's Gap Road, just by coincidence. We started a widening project out there, and all of the residents out there were glad to see us coming, and they all conceded to let us do that widening project, and we worked all winter long on it, and it, even in its current state, it's not what I would consider a Class 1 road, but it's at least 50% better than it was when we started. So I'm much more comfortable with Hoover's Gap Road, even though it has a lot of horizontal and vertical curves to, you know, coin a term from an engineering term, but, you know, that would be a lot more of a viable option. But at some point, regardless, at some point, Sledge Road's going to have to be improved. It touches this property. And I just don't know how willing the property owners out there are going to be to allow that process to happen. With their willingness, it could expedite things tenfold. But there's always one.
Do you know who's west of Sledge Road by chance? And who's from the bend that turns back to the west, who's due north of Sledge Road at Epps Mill? It's 500 yards to Epps Mill in that bend.
I know one of the developers owned it out there at one time. I'm not sure. We had a piece of property on the north side of Epps Mill that they had given us that we gave back to them because of the flooding and stuff.
That's I digress. That's too complicated to get into.
Mr. Mayor?
Following that same conversation and that same vein, would it not be prudent on Sledge Road to identify all the property owners that you say that the right-of-way could go to the middle of the road and those old country roads?
Likely does, that far.
And once you identify those before we purchase the property, see if there's willingness, because all it would take would be one holdout. I remember when we were doing the last leg of 840 from Franklin to Dixon, we had one holdout that held out for a long time, matter of like 8 or 9 years, and would not sell, refused to sell, and finally, you know, and the state was not willing to do the condemnation, so, you know, that could,
Yes, sir.
I think it'd be prudent to identify those property tax owners and see if all of them would be willing to negotiate and then determine what your cost is going to be to widen the road. Because you know you're going to have 2 school buses passing each other.
And so would the inquiry just be their interest in the widening period? Because at that point, you can't offer money, you can't give them an idea of what you pay yet. So
No, is there a willingness to negotiate?
concept,
But
yeah.
if you get one guy that says,
no way, no how. Yeah.
no, not budging, then that would have to be considered, I would think.
Is the water available out there to furnish the school, or gas, either one?
They Consolidated is working on the plans right now, they're laying pipes in there to put some water around there. But we're going to have to upsize and pay the difference from a 10-inch to 16-inch line. And they're trying to figure out what that cost is right now. Now, the gas, I've been told that it's up there.
If we need gas, we'll use tanks. We do that at Rockville and Browns Chapel now. It's not uncommon for us to use tank gas. So if it's there, we like to have it. If it's not, and we don't do much with gas anymore, other than our kitchen equipment and our boilers. Most everything else now is geothermal. So there's very little gas left in the buildings anymore.
Y'all made the comment you hadn't had a chance to meet with Mr. Brooks on any of the road situations. Is that something you think you could do in the near future?
That's our intent.
Very close?
Yeah, we had, I think, one meeting, didn't we? How long ago was that?
It's been a little while. It's been a little while.
And
but there's been other conversations that have gone on past that meeting that we've had internally. But Sledge Road, back to Sledge Road for a moment, because I don't want to stop progress, but Sledge Road in its entirety would not need to be widened out, because Sledge Road really, once it intersects Plainview Road, goes to Wayside Road, and you certainly don't want to put additional traffic on Wayside Road. So the best route, would need to be considered before we start trying to contact people, obviously, but it appears to me that Sledge Road would only need to be widened from the property to Plainview Road, and then the improvements would need to be made to Plainview Road for its duration, which is relatively short. But it appears that if they're going to come in from Hoover's Gap Road, one avenue is going to be Hoover's Gap Road, ingress, egress, then we need to get something on the east end, back toward 24 and Buchanan. So that would, the route to me, the apparent route, just looking at this map and a quick review in the chair back there, would be from the property to Plainview to Epps Mill, and then make those improvements back toward 24 and 41. So it's more complex than just Sledge Road, but I don't think Sledge Road in its entirety would need the extent of the improvements that. So I just didn't want to mislead or misspeak, but it could be done. But what everyone needs to understand, everyone in this room, everyone watching on TV, is the highway department's responsibility really is to maintain the roads that we have, and hopefully along the way make some improvements. And with the budget that we're working with at the highway department, we have 960, give or take, miles of road, and we have a certain amount of money to buy material with to do this maintenance. With the amount of money that we have right now in our budget to do the maintenance on the existing roads, we really need to get about 45 miles of road done annually, so that we can put all of our roads on a 15-year cycle, because that's about what we get out of it. We don't get 100% of them, we don't get 15% of, 15 years life. But 80% we will, so we can live with that. We can put it on a cycle and we can move through with the budget that we have. So for the highway department to be, we're limited in how much road improvements we can do inside of our current budget. So, and we're also limited with our resources. We have staff to do what we're doing now. So to go outside of that, we would have to have additional resources and funding.
Well, and that was
we have the skill set.
That was always my vision, was that really once we identified the project, identified the cost, even if we had to borrow the money outside of a school borrowing or, just as long as it's not tied to the school funding, that basically we would just, you would contract it out, but we would ask you to oversee it.
Right.
Was my vision
That's
really
mine,
all
too.
along.
As well.
Right,
Yeah.
and then as we were able, as we had funds available
Help
and
with that.
opportunity, we would certainly make all the improvements that we could.
It already felt what's in your plan of,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah.
But basically, what y'all be looking at, Sledge Road would be an alternate route.
Yes, sir, it'd be the last connection we would make when we built the high school. And that could be 7 to 10 years, which would allow Commissioner Allen's vision of this collaboration of group meeting together and looking at these roads and going, okay, we do the elementary, then we go to Hoover's Gap first.
See, that takes my comfort level from way low to a lot better, because once the connection is made, they're going to start using the road. There's no question about it. And when that happens, the road
Yes,
has
sir.
to be improved
And
from its
that's what I'm
current
saying,
state.
when
So
we
just
get
don't
to-
make the connection until the road improvement
Right,
happens.
so we would go to Hoover's Gap, and we're still looking at 2021, which is a year and a half. And I'm not minimizing that a year and a half, but it's time that we haven't had in the past. We've dropped a school in, and we got traffic on it next year. And that's always been our problem, is we drop a school in, we got traffic on it the next year, and we're always behind. So we wouldn't do the second leg, even though we would have the easement for it. We wouldn't do the second leg till we built the middle school, which may be 3 to 4 years out. There again, more time to develop these things and figure out, do we need to do this as a road project? Separate funding, let Mr. Brooks oversee it, or is it something that if he knows it ahead of time, he's got a little money, he can, I'm gonna use the term chip away at it. And maybe that's not, but it's larger than that and it's not applicable, so we have to bid it out. And then the high school would come in 7 to 8, 9 years from now, and then at that time, that connection more than likely would be made to Sledge Road. And if that's the case, we've had all of this time to work these things out and put these projects under budget. That's what my goal is, and what Commissioner Allen and I have discussed in the past is beginning this collaboration that we've not done before to work through these things to make it
To plan for them.
Right,
to
because
plan
after that conversation happens and enough study is done, it may be that Sledge Road's not even a viable option. It may be a road that doesn't exist at all right now. We may need an entire new road that makes more sense and actually is, cheaper to do than to try to widen
The other
Sledge
thing
as it
we-
exists. Sledge Road's a
The
farm to
other
market
good-
road that,
Right. The other good thing about this is, like I said, development follows us. And if we've begun conversations with Mr. Brooks and Mr. DeMossi on what we're looking at, then it better helps them when a developer comes in to say, no, your road's not going to go here, we need your road to go here. To make it more work with us instead of us being behind them.
and that's two different,
That's two different-
departments
two
with two different opinions.
Right.
I think development follows the improved highway, so he thinks it's supposed to, so,
All of this.
but regardless.
But it's both, it's both.
So,
All of this is just conceptual right now. I mean, it's subject to change for the benefit of everybody involved.
Yes, sir, and what if the land is approved tonight, next is the development money for the site, just for the elementary part of it.
so for the elementary part, what I'm hearing is that the roads are pretty adequate, other than maybe a few.
We would go to Hoover's Gap,
Yeah.
because that is the best road there.
Okay, so let's go ahead, if we're gonna do some further discussion, let's go ahead and get a motion if we have one, on this.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation for purchase.
Okay, we have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
I have a question. What was the surplus on the general school fund last year? $12.6
Any
million.
kind of-
Yeah, a little over 7%.
So you have to keep at least 3% in there.
We
That's the
used
minimum.
$15 million in balance last year. We need to maintain that, to use that towards that.
You said that revenue was up earlier, though. The sales tax revenue was up. Can we shift some of those pennies out of the school fund and put that toward the road projects.
That's a,
Not with the deficit we.
yeah, you have to, we came into the current budget
Yeah.
year with them using 15 million of their fund balance.
Yeah.
So when revenue is better, that means our deficit is,
Yeah.
but we started out with 15 million under.
Well, how did it, I just looked at a report and it said a $12.6 million surplus.
What are you looking at?
Yeah.
Is it last fiscal year as we
It ended in
closed?
June 2018.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
That was last year. But in the current year, our budget that we adopted is $15 million under our estimated revenue.
So the increased revenue that you were talking about is not going to balance that out.
It will help balance it out. It'll help, that additional revenue will help close that gap. Them not spending all their budget helps close that gap.
But I do not think the entire gap would be closed.
Okay, well, that was my question. If we had any extra there, we
Yeah,
could put toward the
I
roads.
really don't think we do because of.
And this road project may not be this year, it may be 2 years from now, before we start, get to where there's actually a road project.
Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
Is there a time limit you have on purchasing this property?
We bumped it 3 times already, and we're working on the end of March right now, which would mean it needs to go to the full commission next week, which is the 14th, because there's no meeting until next month.
So the landowners will pull this offer if you don't get this okay tonight, you think?
Well, we've kind of pushed the envelope with them because of all the testing and stuff that we've had to do.
What was the vote at the school at your?
It was
Hilton Ed?
unanimous. Well, no,
It
that
was
was
6-1.
Jeff, yeah.
6-1.
6-1, Jeff, yeah, Jeff was what he said.
You know, to me, there's too many unknown answers here. We've got road, we've got water.
The water is, I received a letter last week from CUD. They can provide us water by the end of next year.
But you don't know what it will cost you, correct?
I was told, am I at liberty to speak?
Yes.
I was told to budget $800,000.
Okay. Well, you, 18,000 compared to the 42.5 for the other sounds cheap. But where I'm going with this, time we add the road situation, the water, whatever else that has been asked here that couldn't be answered on obtaining the property to widen the roads to get to the school, we don't have enough answers. I'd like to see, of course, you've already got a motion on the floor, but I'd like to see you postpone it a month or so to give more time to have more answers brought to this table where we will know what we're doing. We're dealing with the unknown right here.
Gary, could you talk just a little bit about the timing of bids, and that was some of what you talked us through the other day when we were talking about,
Well,
getting.
Trey, I think, is the one that
Okay.
had that on the bid.
We originally wanted to open this school in 20. But due to the time frame that we're in now, it's almost unrealistic to make 20 as an open. So that's why we pushed it to 21. The tall gentleman came back.
I would like to say that, you know, it's been mentioned here tonight, and it's a fact that regardless of where you put a 3-school complex, going to have these road issues. You're just going to have them. That's the way it is. So this site is not unique to that. There are going to be road issues regardless of where you try to put a 3-school campus. The campus that's being considered and talked about here tonight in Walter Hill is going to create some road and traffic issues, as much so as this one. So
And it's on a major artery, yeah.
So I don't want to get into this conversation late and imply that this one is unique to road issues, because it's not.
I just look at the three-school complex in Blackman and the roads. I just can't imagine here, without major road improvements, a three-school complex. I'm talking major,
Well, here's
3 and 5 lanes.
Well, here's one of the advantages, though. When your developers do come out, we can require them to improve the road that touches whatever part of the property they're improving. And so that's what he's talking about in terms of, working that if we
Yep.
know this ahead of time. Otherwise, they could just come out and develop as it is, and then when we try to put the school in, their people are already there. They've already developed it. They don't have to do any more to the road. So
I can't imagine that developers aren't monitoring this
Oh, sure.
conversation
Yeah.
to see,
what you're gonna do.
what you're gonna do.
Well,
I mean,
the minute
that's
it
the way it
goes
goes.
through, the land out there will go up for sale by daylight in the morning.
Well, and as the development happens, and that's not unique either, developers are being required right now to make road improvements when they're adding numerous trips. We're generating numerous trips on an existing road. That's why the traffic studies happen. That's why the red light questions come up. The traffic signal lights. It's all about average daily trips. So that's I just didn't want to get up and walk away and leave you with the impression that you're not going to have these road issues regardless of where the school, a three-school complex goes.
There's not a perfect site out there?
Is it a perfect
Is
site?
it, no, so there's not a perfect site out there for us?
No,
You
there's
can't
certainly
send us
not.
to it.
There's not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
What is the property around this property? Is it big open farms?
Yes, it is.
So,
Yes, it is.
Future.
And we had, there's been an ongoing conversation with TDOT about major interchange improvements right there at exit 89 and I-24. Just recently, we were out there with,
A couple weeks ago.
a couple of weeks ago, just by chance. They're not talking about, they had no idea there was a school being discussed out
And we
there.
put the word out, how many years ago, 2-3 years ago, we put the word out to the real estate world, developing world, we're looking for school sites, we need 100 acres, it's taken us this many years to get 2 viable sites as well, despite the complications.
Right.
So,
When you're, the road, we do consider that, to have at least a way out and in. There's just so many things. I mean, we may look at 10 pieces and only one of them is, for some reason, will work. So, you get in there, for instance, out there, we've looked at several pieces, but the one that we'd settled on before this one didn't have enough dirt on it for the septic system, and the sewer was so far away that it cost an arm and a leg to get it out there. So then we moved over to this side, and I mean, it's just a constant thing. But one thing that you have to realize is that we bumped this already from the year 20
We had you do that the other night.
to 21. And so we got another year of these schools getting more overcrowded. And then, what we're going to do, we're going to carry some more portables in there this year. I mean,
Well, we are,
It's
and we
time.
don't have any more.
Well, I just can't imagine that there's not forward-thinking developers out there that would, if we could come up with a, some type of public-private partnership to make some of these,
I assure you, the
Improvements.
public world would
Sure.
entertain that. I really believe that.
That's never been-
It needs to come from Public Works.
Yeah.
But I know
mean,
that has impact on this vote, but that conversation, I think Public
there's
Works
got to be some type of public-private collaboration that could happen.
And this is the furthest we've gone in collaborative conversation with the parties involved that I think are going to be the decision makers. So I know this will get to Public Works. I'll take it to Public Works personally.
Commissioner Johnson?
And look for this collaboration.
Commissioner Johnson?
Mr. Chairman, I think the prudent thing to do is go ahead and approve this, because if the can's kicked on down the road, land's gonna become more expensive. They've done due diligence on this and recognized, and the problems are the areas of concern. So I think that it's a prudent thing to do to go ahead for the time factor, you know?
Well, we have a motion on the floor. There's a second. Mr. Mayor?
One last concern. You said that you had heard that there might be gas. As you're checking
Well,
wells,
there's some over there, but as he said, we have.
Can you verify that and see
We
what?
can, but if not,
cost would be?
propane.
But we'll check with Atmos to see where they are, where they are.
See if they're willing to go that way. Otherwise, you may have to look at geothermal or.
Well, we do geothermal now,
Yeah.
and on a small complex like this, like Brown's Chapel, we can put in 2 tanks that would satisfy. In elementary school, we don't use that much gas. But if they know we're coming with 2 more schools, they'll begin to plan, there again, part of this conversation, Atmos, Middle Tennessee Electric, all of these people are going to begin to look at getting their infrastructure built in place.
Hasn't that happened at Rockville, kind of?
Well, Atmos didn't want to come out to Rockville, but they have no man's land, so Horton Highways Utilities has come from Eagleville to Rockville to supply, because there's a subdivision going in across from the Dollar General store there on 99. The subdivision wanted it, but they didn't have enough capacity, so they asked the school if we'd be interested in tying on, and they prorated their connection fees so that, and it'll allow us to get off tanks, and we'll be on natural gas, so it was a win-win for Horton Highways and for us. So we may end up going tanks short.
Horton's doing that?
Yes, sir, at Rockville.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is we may end up being on tanks for the elementary, but over time, they will come and we'll change over.
I call for the question.
Okay, question been called for. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Yes. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy? No. Commissioner Gooch?
Yes. Motion passes. What's next on your agenda there, Sam?
Do we want to get some of these ones that have been waiting?
Miss Garrett and the sheriff department.
We got one more.
Yeah, I know.
Is it gonna be?
Y'all want to come in? I think theirs are
She
just
said
like
people who've been
approval of
waiting.
contracts, so
Okay,
I just think we might want to.
Let's go ahead and
Let
do
them
that.
go home?
Is that okay?
What's that?
Go ahead and get these quick ones.
Sure.
Ah, Sam, you always stay to the end anyway. What are you doing?
Y'all gonna get your candy.
I gotta go.
Yeah.
Well, here.
I'm done. Thank you.
What about Trey over there? Is he going or today?
Thanks, Dan.
No, you don't get your candy. Okay.
Leaving, I'm staying.
Okay, so,
He's retiring and leaving, I'm staying. Agriculture.
okay, we've got a general fund budget amendment for the agricultural extension. Mr. Tucker?
I bet you never heard of Sledge Road before tonight, did you? You can go look it up.
Actually, I have.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah. We kind of ride all around the county around doing stuff.
All right.
What I'm looking for is to move $10,000 from our rent line to replace, to get our roof fixed as well as the protective shielding around it. Replacing sheet, flashing, and a lot of things. And the funds are coming from our rent line.
Okay, you've heard the request. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Call the roll, please.
Sorry, I missed a second. Who said it?
Everybody, we're trying to.
No, I thought you made the motion. Who made the motion? Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Yes. Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Gooch?
Yes, motion passes. Application for a second Chance Act grant for correctional workhouse. Mr. Cope?
About this time last year, we came in front of this board and
ask for permission to apply for the Second Chance Act grant to address the needs of incarcerated parents with minor children. And we were not awarded that grant, and it has come up again, and we'd like to reapply. Just to kind of give you an idea, 1 in 27, 28 children have an incarcerated parent in the United States, and I think it's important for us as a community to address some of those needs. And hopefully, if we were awarded this grant, we could enhance our already very successful parenting program that we have out there. So there is no match. It's all in kind. Won't cost the county anything.
So this is the same second chance program that the chamber was working to do?
No,
with
that
who
one's a different one. This one's specifically from the Department of Justice for
This is not work training, this is...
right. No, this is for the children of the incarcerated.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in, going to call a roll on this one?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Go ahead and call a roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Yes. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes, motion passes. Oh, sorry. Okay, the Health Department, Ms. Garrett.
Good evening.
Okay.
So I have our annual contract with the state. This is for this current budget year that we've already approved and are in the middle of. The state sends the contract and wants it, to be signed. So I bring it through to, but this is all the money that we're already.
It's the same thing we do every year.
Yes, agreed to, so.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call a roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Everybody's better.
Motion passes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You might want to go in the sheriff's department.
No,
Oh, they
taking
gone home?
care of,
Okay.
I'm taking, I got theirs, so you
Okay.
go back to schools, because,
Okay.
let's see, we've got the, yeah.
You got everything else?
Yes.
Okay, if the school board representative come back up.
So we're on 10. 10.
And we're on item number 10, funding for a multi-school campus site work in elementary.
Who suggested that? Is that you, Mark?
What's that?
That suggested the other folks come through?
Yes.
That was Curtis. That was good.
I hate to see them sitting there all night long.
They look pained.
You want my chocolate?
Maybe next time the agenda will
With
reflect that.
some of all these other big things. Oh, yes. You're leaving in July.
They want that candy.
They're both running and leaving me.
Yeah, right.
Would anyone like a color copy? I brought.
I have
If you
mine.
got them, I'll take one.
Get one for Steve.
It's colored on your screen.
Got mine.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Do you want me to start off
The school board, it'd be item, I guess it was former item 10, requesting funding for $9.5 million with $9,155,000 with $1,155,000 for the design of an elementary school and $8 million for the site work for the multi-school campus from the future bond issue. This is the property that we've just been discussing in Cristiano. What we're requesting is, but due to the time frame, and we're not going to be able to get the school open in 20, what we are requesting is the design money for the entire site, and then the site work money to work with CUD, Middle Tennessee Electric, to build this first road and get everything ready so that we could come back around the first of the year and request the funding to start the school project to be opened in 2021.
The design money's for this school.
Yes.
Design the school.
It's actually for the design of the school and the entire site.
Okay.
The 1 million
155,000
is for the one school.
is for the design of it's the design of the site work and the design for the elementary school itself. But it would be the design for the entire site. We have to lay out and design all the roadways,
Correct.
water lines, sewer lines,
And
everything.
if you're adding the whole package, it just, as a, elementary school is gonna cost,
We're budgeted
It's on your sheet.
32 million
and the site work, I just.
for the elementary portion
The
and the
design
road.
didn't sound like enough then, as a percentage
Yeah,
of the
look at
total.
line, it's line 13. If you look at line 13 all the way across, that's the school.
Correct,
And the project design, because we're,
and the 1.1 is gonna design the elementary school through build out.
Yes, sir.
Architectural,
Yes,
it's
sir.
gonna design the
The
site
campus.
work for 100 acres
yes, sir,
and new roadways.
the new road
Then
that's,
I'm all for that one, thank you.
But it's not all roadways. You know, it's just that.
I understand, just
okay. Yeah.
the southbound
Just the
road to
campus,
Hoover's
yeah.
Gap and
And
yes,
the
yes,
exit to.
yes. And in that process of our design would begin my conversation with them
Sure.
on,
As a
Exactly.
percentage of all the work you described, I just think that's a very good number.
yes, okay.
And one of the things we've learned over the years is when we have these multiple building sites, that initial site work, we are better off if we do it. We had one site where some of the, where we did not, before we started doing that, where we had to undo a few things at first, were done under the first contractor onto other parts of the site when we wound up finally placing the final school there. Nothing big, but let's cover the entire
Project.
site at that point, and then we'll go back to it when we're ready to build.
Where's the 8 million on this sheet?
Well, it's a combination. It's a combination of the site package on 13 and the 1.7 million for the site package.
Yeah, the 1.5 on line 27. Line 27, it's 1.5.
Just kind of
Yeah.
spread out.
Okay, gotcha,
Yeah.
so those are
And
the,
then we.
Then the high school, we took,
ballpark 2 million.
yeah, Commissioner Gurley kind of had me ballpark a number for the high school part, because it's not even on this 5-year plan.
Right.
so I can't, it's not.
It's not on this plan.
Okay. So the 8 million is not just grading, it's utility package
Yes, sir.
based on this 100-acre design for 1
Yes,
million.
sir.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, those numbers are sounding better then, I just need to.
Okay, what's the will of the committee on this?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All right, please call the roll.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Dodd?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Gooch?
Yes. Motion passes.
Thanks for that. Trey, thanks for the.
Yes, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next one, which is former number 11, presenting a funding request for the site work, furniture, fixtures, and construction of Rock Springs Elementary addition in the amount of $11,050,000 from a future bond issue, and that is on line 14. The blue, 350,000, that's design money. It was previously approved, and that design is complete.
How many square feet?
Roughly 40,000. And last time I was asked the question, students, and I deferred because I'd rather use classrooms. Because when you start saying students, it depends on the demographic and how it's done, and people get hung on numbers. It's roughly 25 classrooms is what the addition is. Now, some of the classrooms are smaller. They're for pull-out, children with needed remediation, and more one-on-one, but it's 25 classrooms.
There's no questions.
On the iPad here, it's got 11,050,000.
Yes, sir.
But here it's showing 11,400,000.
That includes the 350 that's already been appropriated.
Okay.
That's the total cost for the whole project. The 350's already been funded.
Commissioner Adams,
Motion to approve.
is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes. Motion passes.
Those are the square foot numbers you're seeing.
Well, that number, typically what we quote is construction, that includes fixture, furniture, design, and everything. So the answer to your question is yes. If you take the construction and the site, those two numbers, and then divide it by, that would give you the numbers that we typically quote, as because that's the construction cost.
Yes, excellent.
Beautiful. But to answer your question, yes, sir, for the whole thing.
Yeah, that's a number you can.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the evening.
Welcome to
Thanks,
the
y'all.
fire train.
All part of the service.
Crowd's getting kind of thin.
Okay, looks like we're on item number 17. Ms. Nolan?
Yes, this is a request from the Sheriff's Department requesting permission to approve the Sheriff's Office applying for the Tennessee Highway Safety Office grant in the amount of $60,000 for prevention and highway safety enforcement and $18,000 for the teen grant. We've done this for several years and it's 100% funded by the state.
Motion
It's
to
not
accept.
much.
Commissioner Dodd, is there a second? Mr. Piercy?
Let's go to public safety first.
I know it did not because they forgot to bring that up.
All in public safety?
No. Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
It's an
I'm-
annual
I'm fine
grant.
moving forward
Yeah,
with
it's
it.
an annual grant.
Seems-
They
I've heard
just
some rumblings that
totally
this
forgot
happens a
about it
lot.
when the application process came through.
Commissioner Steve, I didn't catch what you said.
I said I'm fine moving forward, but I just heard there's some rumblings that the public safety committee is upset that these grants seem to just forget public safety, have to be done at budget all of a sudden.
Okay.
So they're like,
I didn't get in my office till yesterday.
okay.
He was upset. Chairman was.
Okay, no other discussion? If you call the roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes. Motion passes. Fund budget amendment for the recovery court, OIT, and maintenance.
Okay, in the last fiscal year, we received money from Christy Houston. Two parts of it, one to help fund the purchase of the property and another piece to renovate the property. So the majority of it started last fiscal year. There were monies, so Christy Houston advance funded, so the monies were all received last year. So we moved into this year, not knowing where the money was going to be spent from. We've held off on this until it's completed. Building maintenance and OIT have been spending money out of their budget on behalf of them. And so this amendment brings forward really the unspent money from last year into the current year budget. It's $6,005 to go back to building maintenance, OIT for their data processing services of $2,840 and data equipment $5,775. At the end of this process, we have unspent funds of around $10,835 that will be returning back.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Johnson, is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Allen, any other discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes. Motion passes. Item number 19.
Okay, this is, it looks very complicated, but it's kind of a process we go through at least twice before the end of the fiscal year, and this is checking all the salary line items, making sure that there's sufficient funds to pay each of the lines. Some are resulting from people who've left and we've got to pay things out. Some, there's a couple on here that's got a calculation formula that means Lisa Nolan's calculation was wrong. And those have been corrected, so they will not happen in next year's Excel spreadsheets. But above the lines in the planning, there were funds within each of the functions to take care of it, to take care of the issues. Down below, juvenile court, that was one that was a more experienced person that came in. them was there, and probation was a calculation error. So the total coming out of fund balance to fix is $7,270. The other ones were within the functions.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Allen, is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Johnson. No further discussion. If you please call the roll.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes. Motion passes. General fund budget amendment for risk management.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, if I could take 20 and 21, basically I'm requesting the same thing for these two professional services. I'll start with the first one, and you can vote on them either way, either combined or separately. The risk management, as you know, Mrs. Street left as our director of risk management. And so we posted the position, and we went through the process. I narrowed it down to the top 4. Out of that, we eliminated some that I don't know why they decided they were qualified, but we got it down to the top 4. So Lisa, myself, Steve, Lois, and Sonia all interviewed the top 4 candidates. We came down, we made a pick to make an offer, and we had posted the position at a category 44, and they chose not to take the position. It was just too low. They thought that once they got there, of course, when you post it, it's kind of limited on what the duties are. But risk management is one of the more, in my opinion, one of the more complicated positions, because they handle the property and casualty insurance for the entire county. They handle all the benefits, our health, insurance, dental, the wellness program. Everything is encompassed.
Lawsuits.
Yeah, lawsuit. Everything. It's a very complicated position, and to offer what was allowed is 44. I'm requesting tonight that we're, in the middle of the budget, be able to raise that to a 50 category. The top end on the 44 is $80,595, whereas the category 50 would be $95,533 on that. And then right behind that, we have stormwater. As you know, Ms. P has chosen to leave our planning department, and for higher pay. She's moving to Florida and taking Mr. P's grandkids with her. He's not real happy about that. But we've had it posted for how long, Michael?
2 weeks.
How about?
2 weeks.
We've had it posted for 2 weeks and not a
But
first.
you had the highway department.
Oh, highway
for 2
department.
months.
For
2
2
months.
months.
2 months in highway department. So we're trying to bump those professional engineering positions to, we can't get a nibble. You all have tried at Tennessee Tech, students graduating.
We did all of the schools that have civil engineering programs in Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky.
And concerning Mike is the only engineer we have left, okay? And it's getting ready to be springtime, and all these developers are getting ready to come in and start wanting their plats approved. And
They're already in.
Yeah. They're already there, and he's drowning. We need to be able to at least repost these 2 positions and try to get a little higher pay.
So you're going to let me ask you this first on the risk management. You said you
I'll
had the top
repost.
4.
Yeah. Well, I made an offer to the top, and it was denied. And so I'll repost, and we'll go from there.
What's the second one? I'm just curious. Acceptable?
Not really.
Okay, that's fine.
Not really. Just didn't have any experience. Didn't have any OSHA experience. Didn't have really any major medical benefits. Really talk about a capitation rate. They didn't know what that was. So it was. Matter of fact, halfway through the posting, we had risk manager, Sonia went in and changed it to Director of Insurance, and we got a few more applications, but
We were getting only loss prevention, because people were confused by the title with risk management. They think like corporate America, they think that's loss prevention. So we were getting people that had been, at Dillard's doing security,
Well, we had
thinking,
one-
oh, I qualified.
We had one that worked at a tattoo parlor, that thought they were qualified to be our risk manager. We just, that it's, all due respect to that profession, I don't do work, but this is a huge.
It is, and it's more in line with what she was earning. Do you think it's enough? I mean, that's what I'm concerned about.
Well, the top end of 55, I'd say that's probably a bottom of where you need to be, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm wondering,
Yeah.
are we adjusting it appropriately? Does it need to be higher? And then the next thing too is on stormwater. I just wonder about the ripple effect. I absolutely think we need to pay that position more, but then does that mean Mike's worth more?
Well, absolutely. I mean, because you can't raise stormwater above what he's making.
Right. Well, I mean, I
guess you could, but we're going to have to bump him.
Well, on the 50, the range from 81 to 95, where does that fall with, I guess, some examples of who's already making that? Where would that person fall in there? Because it seems like it's a kind of a high.
I'm going to turn that over to Sonia.
That's the same pay grade I'm in.
This 81 to 95?
Mhm.
Anybody above, I mean,
The only two employees positions above the HR director currently is the IT director and the finance director. Those are the only two positions.
because this is a director level position. That's what you're saying.
Yes, it is.
And what are we're going rudimentary here, so there's a 44 and a 50, and you mentioned the 55. That's off our pay table.
Yes.
And how high, not dollar-wise, but how high does it go?
It goes to 60.
Stormwater is 37, and we're requesting tonight to go from a 37 to a 41.
The
stormwater engineer.
Not our
risk
not
manager.
our engineer, but the his personnel.
That's correct.
And IT's what pay grade is numerically in finance?
I don't know what's that.
Here, I can take, hold on. Okay. And we have, and I'm glad that you're talking about what this impact does to other positions.
yeah, sorry.
I didn't know I hated to keep talking behind you, but I wasn't invited to come.
Please join us.
I am glad that you brought that up because we do a survey every year, a salary survey every year, and we have to be very mindful, of how we're applying that, of course, how it relates to other departments. And in our process, we always look, we've always said none of the department heads should make more than the county mayor. So when you start looking at it and you having to back down on some of the positions, there are sometimes that the survey data comes in that Lisa or Brian Robertson would be making above the county mayor. So we try to keep that in perspective. We've got the results in, but it hasn't been, massaged out. And so that, to your point, it is within that range, and we would need to evaluate whenever the budget time comes in. And even for the engineer, this is to get the position posted and hope. We looked at it to say, where's the range? And we didn't want to put it up to the same pay grade as Mike. That wouldn't be fair to Mike. So we did back it down a few pay grades. But when we do the budget process, it may be that we're coming back and saying, we really need to lift that position more. This is to get it posted to hopefully relieve the pressure for Mike and for Greg for their positions now, because we have had them posted and we have literally reached out everywhere to try to get somebody in for that. And we've had 7 applications in almost 3 months.
What is IT's pay grade?
It's a let me see the sheet. So I can tell you.
While she's looking on the risk manager, we were very fortunate. Lisa was able to reach out and call Lois on vacation down on the beach somewhere and said, hey, can you come back?
2 hours from when she was pulling into the.
Can you come back? And unfortunately, it didn't take her long. It's like riding a bike. She came back and picked up.
Lisa's 58.
She came back.
Our engineer?
The Mike engineer or the professional engineer?
Our department head.
Department head, okay. 46. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Lois came back in and picked up, and fortunately, because we were changing brokers, And it was very critical to have somebody running that office by changing brokers, because that was implemented right as Melissa was leaving. And not just on property and casualty, but also on our hospitalization, major medical, we were changing brokers as well. She's willing to stay on until we can get somebody. If it's quick, she'll stay on another 30 or 60 days until she feels like she can turn them loose. But I think it's important that we move expeditiously, try to get somebody in that position, because she's not going to stay. She's ready.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ready to go back.
Bottom line is, we've kind of been in transition here. We've lost two good people.
Yes.
And penny wise and pound foolish, training people, and then them to go on to get people that are qualified and to do the job and stay with you. I mean, you have to pay for it.
Well,
So,
and fortunately, my good friends, County Mayor and Williamson County, and we were at the GNRC meeting last month and ran into him, and I said, we're getting ready to do a study. And they had just paid $25,000 for their study. And I convinced him that we're okay with that. So, but we're going to be looking at that, okay, as we head into the new budget.
So your motion is, or your request rather,
Yes.
is to raise the risk manager position to a 50.
To a 50?
And increase the current position up for the remainder of the year.
That's correct.
There's no numbers for this engineers in a separate.
Okay, the engineer's on your desk. It didn't get to the,
We didn't get it on there, so you should have a copy of that. That's taking it from a 37 to a 41. You'll see there on the third bullet point. You see that? Down an explanation for above.
Yes, sir.
Amendment request.
I was going up to a.
So-
Does that bring the total of
And
that position?
and just so you know, that position.
69,655.
no, there's two things, there's
They
two
have
things
it.
happening
Okay.
on the one that you're looking on the floor. This assistant, part of this was a payout because of a leave. This is, the estimate is what it will be once you approve it, starting Monday after commission, to have enough funds to pay through the end of the year. Also, in this is money for contracted engineering services to help them out in.
Carry the load.
Yeah, help carry the load. So that's in there. That's the 40,500.
What is the pay range of a 37 to 41
Right now,
personnel?
if they were if they came in with experience credit up to 5 years is what we honor, so at 37, it would be 60,440. At a 41, it would be 67,694. And again, I anticipate bringing this back to this committee, so you will hear this again, that I anticipate that that's going to go up, because the city of Murfreesboro just recently did a salary survey and they implemented it in October. We've got new information from Hamilton County, and then Williamson County just did their survey, and they've all shared that data with me. And the trends are really going up, and this area is growing. You're going to see it in IT and probably all your departments, because, you know, realistically, if Mike left today, you would be hard pressed to find somebody to replace Mike at his current salary. So you're going to see those trends probably across the board. The sheriff's office has asked for some, you know, their patrol, and we've already calculated that for them, and a little bit of shock to them, but they will be bringing that before you as well. So I'm preparing you that will be coming.
Well, and I guess that's one of the reasons why I'm wondering, do we need to wait on the next budget cycle for Mike? Because, you know, I mean, if we hire somebody, I mean, there's some money there, obviously, because the positions have gone unfilled. So I'm just wondering if we need to go ahead and make his adjustment.
I'm going to say, it's in the
Highway.
highway is what's unfilled. This one, I mean, I've budgeted exactly.
Right.
Now, if you want more, I got to go
I
do
guess
some more.
I guess I'm looking for combat pay.
Yeah, combat pay.
You know what I mean?
I understand.
That's what I'm looking for.
understand.
Yeah. Where's the combat pay? Yeah.
We've got our director
Yeah.
doing
Working
work of
triple
3
duty,
people.
right. Seriously.
So how do we?
Yeah.
Go ahead, finish that.
No, you're on it. Where do we find the combat
He's
pay?
going to have combat pay right now.
Yeah.
Bring somebody in on an interim basis, contract out, but we're still, how long does it take to post? And by the time we, hopefully.
Well, it's posted now. We will just adjust the
We'll
pay and
adjust the
hopefully
pay.
that we get, and then reach out to all those people that we did before to try to get some.
And we can use consultants in the meantime,
To help
draw
offset.
from the existing salaries and move that to the consultant line items to help.
Does your posting
workload.
drop down, or does it remain?
Say it again, what?
Yeah, but I don't know how your posting works, but.
We can go in and update the posting
Okay.
to reflect the new salary. If
Okay.
you approve that, then we can
I didn't know
reflect that.
on the list of all the jobs posted, if it was down at the bottom, and if you took it down and reposted, it puts it back
It's
at
an
the top.
alphabetical order.
Gotcha, all right.
Are we leaving Public Works alone? Or is this?
No,
This
I would
says
like to put
stormwater.
theirs too.
Yes, sir. We'd like to put them in there as well.
And
You know,
Public Works was already at the 65. They were already.
They probably have
Have you got enough in your budget to use consulting?
Salary range as the county does for the
I saw both postings. Here he comes.
You got enough marshmallow hearts?
May I join?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and hang that down, so.
Because we're twice having to come up here.
It's not gonna be elected.
Is that his combat pay right there?
Yeah, that's right.
Two more.
The public works position will be, public works position falls under the umbrella of the highway department. So that request, that request would go to the road board for their approval, and then on to Public Works, who would hopefully approve to send it on the budget and budget to the full commission. We've had the current Public Works posting up since at least first of the year, maybe right
Yes,
after Christmas,
right.
maybe
It
even
was
first
right
of
after-
December. Did we post it before?
We posted it a few weeks before Christmas because we were hoping that we would get somebody who would be graduating from school in December.
Right, that's right.
That maybe that they would apply.
Right.
And then we did it, and then we didn't get anybody, so then
Right.
we extended it, and we have had 7 applicants. Only 3 of them met any of the criteria, but then 2 of them were out of state and conference calls and just knowing the different dynamics of the county, so we just really, and I mean, we have.
What's the pay range for yours?
I'm sorry, I think it's the same. I don't have those numbers in front of me.
It is right here, 56,319 to 60,440 today. But if we moved it up and everything improved. then-
So here's my intention, and part of this is a suggestion more than it is anything else, because I'm kind of speaking for Mike as well. But we're at first week in March, heading into the second week in March. So between raising the the offer, so to speak, getting it posted, letting that posting run, doing the interviews, the actual hire date is getting very close to the end of this fiscal year. So what I've already done is budgeted in for next year enough to make these adjustments, this adjustment. So, and I can't imagine that it's not going to be a similar situation for our stormwater person as far as the timing of the hire. So there's a certain amount of money, and I understand what Lisa's talking about, the payout, the people that leave have a certain amount of time built up that, they have to be paid out for vacation time and that kind of thing. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a certain amount of money left. I'm just going to talk about my budget now. I'm not going to talk about mine because I don't know exactly where his is at. I have to think it's similar to mine, but mine's been open longer. So the pay still exists in this year's fiscal budget that we were going to pay the PW engineer that left. My suggestion is, and I know this is kind of down the road, and I think Mayor Catherine was going to bring this up in other business, but my suggestion is to keep from getting so far behind on my projects and Mike's projects as well, we should explore the possibility of hiring a consulting engineer to take some of this workload away from Mike, especially, and Public Works.
That's in there.
too.
That's on here.
It is in there?
Yes, 40,500 right there.
Okay, all right. I wasn't aware.
Yeah, that's what that one is.
Okay, so I intend to use, the money that's already in the budget, it's all about where's the money come from, and that was my intention. And then, because Mike and I already share the public works engineer, we could share the burden of paying that consultant, put a not to exceed number in there, for instance. And then just kind of use on an as needed basis. It wouldn't be an everyday thing, a couple days a week or something like that. I think we'll be way ahead of where he is now, where we are now. So I think that's a reasonable plan moving forward. And then next year we just have to budget for these pay increases. Because we're not going to hire, I don't know we're going to hire anybody the way we have it right now.
Right. I agree. Yeah, I was just going to ask, because I haven't looked at your line where your guy was, where your guy is. But could we, since, next week when the commission does this, because this is a commission amendment that will need to go, if we could go ahead and do it for you too, check your line and make sure that there's sufficient funds to bring it to this level too, that we go out with both of them at the higher rate. And have it so it's kind of pending approval of, right, of the road board. Have the commission approve it pending approval of
And
y'all,
then
so at
say
least
pending
that's
road board
done,
approval.
and then at your next board meeting, it stops, because ours will already be,
Kinda like we
the
did the
commission,
road
yeah.
board raises.
Right.
And we could
That's
go
my
ahead
intention is to request a budget amendment to move money inside the budget that already exists from our salary, our PW's salary, into other contracted services, I guess.
And so I could change my posting, if I'm hearing what I think I hear you say, I could change the posting now, like tomorrow, to the new salary. And say pending for both of them, pending commission approval and then pending road board approval. And that way you could start getting the applications, and then we could change the posting from saying it had a deadline to say until filled. So if you get 3 or 4 applicants,
So I think that makes,
you see what I'm saying? We could
Yes.
say until filled, because we do that for
Yes.
like the detention officers and stuff sometimes,
Yeah.
when they're needing somebody, and that way they don't have to wait till the deadline to go ahead and interview and hire. We could say until filled, and as they're coming in,
Right.
if you see somebody you want to interview, then you can interview. And when you say, hey, I found my candidate, then we shut it down.
Can we attract somebody with a sign-on bonus? Is there anything that would?
We have talked about that before. We've discussed that and kicked that idea around. I would rather put the bonus in the salary from the get-go
Right.
instead of.
I'm just thinking, you were talking about, hiring somebody that's kind of maybe on the younger side. They're not great savers. Sometimes,
That's true.
getting a chunk might be something that would
valid
say,
point. That's a valid point.
that might get their attention. Yeah.
I think if you
Yeah,
did it.
Well, professional engineer wouldn't be just out of school. They would have
But an
had to.
EIT would, but.
EIT, right. Now, we've not talked about the EIT.
Right.
And so that's, if we need
I'm
to
just
discuss
looking-
that.
I'm
we
just trying to
need-
figure out, how do you distinguish
best.
us from
Everybody
every
else.
other offer? Because apparently they've got plenty of them.
Sonia, when you post a position, where is it posted?
We posted on, there's a system that I brought before budget, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. It's called NeoGov, and all they do is posting for governmental entities, and it goes worldwide. So it's on our county site, but it goes on to governmentjobs.com, and then in many cases, Indeed.com will pick it up, Monster.com, Career Builders will pick it up, because they will go to that government jobs. They want to draw those government people in, so then they will pick it up. And then for Greg's position, we paid a subscription to post it to the American Public Works Association, which is like $300-something. And then all the universities that I told you about, they have, many of the larger universities have, it's called Handshake, and you can post jobs on that. So I went in and posted that, and the ones who didn't, we did it with their careers, and we contacted their engineering department for people that were graduating in December and then again in May, because we thought, our thought was, well, if we can't get a professional engineer, maybe if we're getting an EIT that will be graduating in May, we would at least know we'd have somebody by May. But we feel like we've got to have a professional engineer at one place or the other to help offset some of Mike's workload. So, that would be our preference, I believe, be Mike's preference. So, you know, if he took a vacation, somebody could still sign off on stuff. Wouldn't have to wait.
So, we've got two, I guess, amendments. Is anyone ready to make a motion on those?
I'm just going to approve both of them. I'm sure the road board's not going to have any problem with this situation that we're in.
We're just freeing money out of
Do
it.
y'all,
It's just,
do y'all have a problem with me preparing an amendment to go to the commission next Thursday to have, and Mark have it up to where it's pending approval of the road board, so at least it's gone through the commission? And I don't know what it's gonna be till I look at it, and I'll get with Mary, and we'll,
Well, let's get a
We'll go
second
right on.
before you discuss
Oh,
it.
sorry.
That's okay. Okay, I'm sorry you did. All right, Lisa, you may talk.
what I just said.
So he said both jobs.
What did you just
but
say
there's-
again?
but
There's
There are actually
three
three
positions,
amendments
though.
that we're
Three.
talking about, so.
Yeah.
We want to do the risk management and the
General fund.
stormwater
Two engineers.
engineer and the public works.
I want to do them all.
Correct.
Yes.
correct, all three of them.
Is that motion going to?
3 and 1.
Okay.
Cool with that?
Any other discussion?
Second, and who seconded that? I'm sorry.
Commissioner Dodd.
Okay.
I'll call the roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Mr. Gooch?
Yes. Motion passes. Any other business?
I got one last thing,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. I received this yesterday from Sumner County Executive Anthony Holt. You know, he currently, in the GNRC, there are 13 counties that all participate. I represent Rutherford. He is currently the chairman of GNRC, those 13 counties. There's a piece of legislation pending, and this is a resolution. I know if you want to send it back to your committee, this resolution, I think there still may be time to do that, or if you want to just send it on to the full commission. But what this he's asking other counties in the mid-state to get behind this resolution, and basically it's talking about the bill on online sales to help us pass online sales, that we get the tax revenue on online sales. That could be huge for us. We've been trying to get it and talking about it for the last, since Governor
Streamline sales.
And it just says, whereas online sales continue to grow with these increases, sales tax collections have greatly expanded. We're losing our brick and mortar boxes. Sears are closing down, Penny's are closing down. We're losing that local because everybody's buying off Amazon. So that would be huge for us. So it's just a resolution telling the legislators of both House and Senate to support this. So we could mimic the same resolution and send it on to the full commission Thursday night. You can send it back through the steering, whichever way you want to do it, but I would like to bring it.
Something like this would usually go through steering, wouldn't it?
Pardon me?
How fast is the bill moving?
Well, I'm not sure. I can call tomorrow and find out where the status is of that piece of legislation. But since the state of state was just Monday night, I think we should have enough time if you want to send it back.
Can we do it at that special call steering meeting? Well,
Sure.
then we wouldn't be voting on it as a commission till April anyway.
Yeah.
But you want to go ahead and maybe send it on?
There's another piece of legislation I'd like to discuss when y'all finish.
Okay.
Would you like to see that go through steering?
Well, it probably would be better to go through there after we were just complaining about the grant for public safety not going through their committee.
We didn't complain about that. You complained about it.
Some people complain to me about that are on steering, okay?
Yeah, I'd like to see that go through steering.
Okay.
That makes sense? Just
I'll put it on the
Can you take it down?
calendar if that's okay. It's the next one, but I think we need to get behind this and encourage our legislators to get behind this. That, you know, we're going to start losing, you know, revenue dollars, because I'm guilty of it myself. I go looking online.
I mean, but I pay tax when I buy from Amazon, so where does it go?
Well, only because, see, it's not all
Only goes to the
states.
state tax.
It's when Amazon first came here, we hammered them down and said, okay, you can come in here, we're gonna give you those abatements to come in here, and both locations, in Wilson, well, 3 locations, Hamilton, Wilson, and here. After 2 years, you're located here, then you gotta start charging taxes, and they agreed to that. However,
It's only state tax, though, isn't it?
anything else you
I don't
buy
think they charge
online, you
you
on
on
the web and order a pool pump or chlorinator pills or what?
Yeah, it's
you know,
not uniform,
clothes.
yeah.
It's not uniform, it's just one, you know.
Okay, so you're gonna take that to steering then?
Yes, sir, I'll forward that.
Jeff, you think we're gonna take yours to steering, or is this
Well,
budget
I-
related? Well, tell us what it is.
I don't know what, Lisa and I have emailed back and forth on this, that House Bill 1352. It appears to be driven by special and city school districts, but it requires that all school funds collected by a county for capital projects be apportioned among the LEAs in the county in full proportion to each LEA on the basis of the weighted full-time average daily attendance. Our capital projects fund,
Yes, so it means, what, about 600,000, is that what I
Yeah,
did?
yeah.
It would have meant, these are monies coming in
Yeah.
from the property tax rate that goes into the capital projects fund that we use to repair schools. And there was a lawsuit, and it was determined by the judge that we do not have to share those funds. So when we talk about a school penny and a real
Yeah.
full penny, the full pennies are going into the school capital projects fund. When you look at this bill, it looks very, very innocuous.
Very.
Little. It's like, oh, that can't be bad. But it's about $600,000 bad to Rutherford County, meaning we will, if that passes, we'll have to share those monies with the schools we'll be getting.
is there any possibility that it could be taken further to, right now, we just share K-6?
Oh, sure, it could be. Anything is amendable on
Oh, I know
on the
it
floor.
is. I know it is.
That's what you gotta be aware of.
That's what just came.
You know, they
when I was-
pop it out,
yeah.
especially in the house. They
Yes.
play games over there, and they
Yeah.
pop it out, all of a sudden it's on the floor, and here you go.
But
So, right.
you reached out to our delegation when I talked to you. I mean, he
Okay.
immediately did that. But I didn't know if your school board folks have been reaching out too.
I'll bring that up at our next meeting.
Can you take that to steering?
Is it?
Can you take that request to
Are you going?
steering
No, I'm going to John Coleman.
on the House Bill
Capital
1352?
Connection in the morning?
It is.
However y'all
it's
would
not.
like to handle
But I had it on my
it.
calendar for
Is
tomorrow.
that gonna be too late to go through?
I think it is in the morning.
It'll be the April meeting if we wait. to
Yeah.
take it
I can't
to
be
the-
there, I'm going to John Coleman. That's why I was asking if they're going to be there. You could reinforce that message tomorrow.
State as quick as possible.
Tomorrow at, okay.
Doing the session.
If it's tomorrow.
I had it on.
It is, Capital Connection, 7:30 at the chamber.
I was saying if Capital Connection was in the morning,
Oh,
that'd be a
okay.
good time
Oh,
to speak to the local delegation again,
Oh, okay.
reinforce that. And I'm going to be at John Coleman's.
Yeah. You
So-
working tomorrow?
Yes,
Can you come to the chamber?
7:30?
We'll go together.
where?
At the chamber.
Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce.
Out on,
All right,
Medical
medical
Center.
center.
okay, yeah, I can be there.
So is April gonna be too late?
I don't think so. You know, everybody, they circulate things and put, you know, they start betting on when's the last day and at what time and everything else. But I think with the state of the state just this week, they're not going to get out like April. We've done in the past. It's probably going to be well into May.
Okay, if you don't mind taking that to steering,
Okay.
the request for
But
that.
that'd be good. If you can get there a little bit early before 7:30 in the morning, they have little postcards that you can fill out with questions.
Okay.
And make sure that Paul Latour or whoever's there, he's had hip surgery, so he may not be there, but if you can get that, to be asked that question, it's important for our delegation to answer that.
And just going back to the salary issue y'all were discussing, we are encountering the same sorts of issues, both with our certified administrators, but also we lost our staff county, our relatively new staff attorney to a neighboring system for close to a 50% increase. Yeah, so I think
It's not that,
we will be, there's
See that
some of that. we're
it's
looking
not
at.
that gated county to the west of us, is it?
No, it's not. That one wouldn't have surprised me. Yeah.
No, but I mean, I knew
But-
this was coming. I've been hearing this from
Well,
just about every
that's-
department.
that's it. Mhm, yeah.
Commissioner Stevens, you can assure that that's on y'all's agenda for.
We'll have both of them on there.
Kind of early on, so
They want to stay the whole time.
Okay. Any other business?
I just have one other thing I was going to ask about. As you're looking at salaries, I brought this up last year, and we didn't really talk about it a whole lot, but will you look really hard at all the departments that need a number two? If we hadn't had Lois, who could have stepped in to do run risk management, what would we have done? There was no number two in that department.
No, there really wasn't, no scaring.
I think we need to look hard at
All departments that don't have a number two.
Well, I don't know if they all need one. That's up for y'all to decide or recommend, but there are some for sure, you gotta have a number two, you know? So just look at that.
Finance department has a great number two.
You know, but like we talk, you know, I mean, if something happened to Mac, who's gonna run?
Be referred as an assistant.
You got that, Kevin.
You
got Mac
I did. I'll give him all my candy. Oh my gosh, you get all the candy. That's a lot of love right there. Anyway.
Okay, well, that's food for thought. No other business, this meeting stands adjourned.
Thanks, Chairman.